Hey now, Brawlers, it's time for another Board Game Brawl review with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey now, today we're going to take a look at the Ambition expansion for Roll for the Galaxy, the first edition for the very excellent Roll for the Galaxy game, which I have on my shelf right back here from Rio Grande Games. Now, as a precursor, if you haven't watched my review of Roll for the Galaxy, I'll actually have a little link up in the corner to that if you want to watch it. I completely and utterly dislike Race for the Galaxy. I cannot say that it's a bad game at all. It's a very well-designed game that is totally not for me. It's very boring, very dry, very themeless, just tons and tons of icons. It's very hard to get into. There's a steep learning curve. I could go on and on. Roll for the Galaxy totally worked for me. I love Roll for the Galaxy. I've actually enjoyed it more as time has gone on than my review had even let on. And everyone in my group loves it too. It's been a huge hit. So to say that I was excited for an expansion doesn't quite cover it. And this expansion is one of those ones that does not change the game in a drastic, fundamental way, which I do think a lot of the Race for the Galaxy expansions did, at least parts of the Race for the Galaxy expansions. But what this one does is it adds a lot of stuff that just integrates seamlessly into the base game, along with a couple of new dice, which of course is a dice game, so it's a pretty big deal, but it's not quite as momentous as you might think. There's also new objective tiles as well, which are completely modular, and you don't have to add them if you don't want to. Let me go ahead and show you all the new stuff that comes in the set, or most of it anyways. Then we're going to come back. I'll let you know what I think. Alright, let's go over everything that comes in the Ambition expansion for Roll for the Galaxy. First and foremost, the game does not, or the expansion does not come with new player screens. However, it does come with stickers that you're going to put on your old player screens, covering up the dice face distribution section and the little graph showing you the starting setup, that reminding you of the starting setup. The reason for that is because, first off, you have a couple of new dice that are going to be in the supply, so you can the dice face distribution chart will now be reflecting that and all the different dice that you have to choose from now. Also, the starting setup is a little bit different. Instead of starting off with 3 home dice, the white dice in your cup, you're going to start off with 2 of the white dice and 1 of the new black die, which is the leader die. In fact, let's just jump right into that and I will explain how those work. So first and foremost, notice that they are a completely different color, these leader dice. These dice are considered wild colored for any kind of effect. So for instance, if you use them to ship goods, to consume goods on a planet, then they count as the color of the world, which means that you can get a bonus point for shipping with it, or if it is the good on a planet, it can be considered the color that you want it to be. And in fact, there is one face of the die, which is the asterisk, which is just wild, which means you can use it as any type of phase without having to reassign it, and you can dictate with it as well. Now, new to this expansion are dice with multiple things on each of their faces. The other new dice in the set, the orange dice, also have that kind of element to it. So anytime you see 2 of the different phase symbols on it, so in this case you have explore and produce, you choose which phase you assign that to. You can use it to dictate a phase, same as ever, but if you just follow a phase with it, you decide which phase you want it to be assigned to. And then what's even cooler is, let's say that I choose to lock this in as an explore, but explore doesn't actually happen that round. You didn't dictate it, no one else dictated it. Well, if someone did dictate produce, you immediately switch this over to produce. And now you've got that going on. If that didn't happen either, well, okay, you didn't use a die and it goes back to your cup. And as you can see, there's multiple different matchups of dice that are going to do that type of thing. Now, you may also notice this money symbol on some of the dice together with one of the different phase symbols. What that means is, let's say that I complete the depicted task. So in other words, I assign this die to, that's the develop symbol. If I assign that die to develop a world, and I actually do develop the world, it pops and I'm able to retrieve that die. Instead of going to my citizenry, the discard pile, as it normally would, that money symbol on it means that it immediately refreshes and goes back to my cup as if I had replenished it at the end of the round by spending money. So it's an auto money, usable just for that die, goes right back into my cup. But the way that the rulebook says and the way I mostly interpret it, I'm sure there's some special case that might contradict this. If you don't do that exact phase, you don't get it. So in other words, if you somehow assigned this die that normally says develop to some other type of task because of some sort of special power or whatever it might be, and the die is used, unless you actually use it to develop in this case or explore in this case or whatever it might be, you don't get that dollar symbol. You don't get it back. It just goes back into your citizenry as normal. And by the way, before I forget, you do get a bunch of the normal dice added to this set because of some of the new tiles and worlds that are in this set that require apparently tons of military, as well as some of the other dice. But there's nothing new or special about these dice. They're just the same as the dice from the base set. Now, onto the other new type of die that is in the game, and that are the orange dice, which their proper name is the Entrepreneur dice. Now, you see that these have a lot of. In fact, I believe these are all 6 of the faces of the dice. That's how I set them up. So you see that a bunch of the faces are just the dual phase dice, so you decide where they are, and also the money symbols as well. And that's almost it for the orange dice. I mean, they just really behave like all of the other different colored dice, and worlds will give them to you and let you swap them out and things like that. However, one important note is that in this set, while you do get a lot of new tiles in the game, new worlds and such, there are no orange worlds. So in other words, these will not ever get you any kind of bonus for color matching. They are not wild like the leaders are. They're just orange. And though you can use them for multiple things, that is sort of the trade-off. They're versatile, but they're not as strong potentially as actual color matching. A couple of other notes that aren't really component related, but they are new rules that are in the instruction booklet. I'd kind of be remiss if I didn't mention them, and I'll just say them now before we move on to the rest of the new stuff. First up, they clarify die removal a bit more in this one, and that's that, I'm just going to read it directly from the rulebook. If a faction or homeworld instructs you to remove a die, you may choose any of your starting dice or dice granted by other tiles. You're usually going to do that to your home dice or your white dice. Also, this is a little more important, so I don't have the player board out in front of me, but you know how you have credits, and typically if your credits get reduced to 0, you would go immediately back up to 1. I think it used to be at the end of your turn. Now it happens almost immediately. As soon as you've finished with whatever effect it is that reduced your credits to 0, they pop back up to 1 right away instead of waiting until the recruitment phase at the end. All right, moving on. Let's talk about these things. These are brand new as well. These are objective tiles. You have a ton of them, and I'm not going to show you every single one. But at the beginning of a game, you're going to shuffle those up and put 6 of them face out somewhere near the player's areas, like in the common area, like next to the phase tiles, wherever you really want to do it. These are common objectives that all the players are going to be working towards from round to round. Once you put the 6 out, the rest of them are going to go back in the box. Whenever anyone meets the conditions on that particular tile during the phase to which it applies, then you are going to have the chance to claim special tokens. These tokens are called talent counters, and talent counters essentially count as wild dice. See how they're black? They're just like the leader dice. If you hold on to them to the end of the game, they're worth 1 point, actually. But at any point during the course of the game, you keep them behind your screen, and you can assign them the same way as dice, with the exception that they cannot be used to dictate an action phase. You can only use them to follow an action, but then you could the sky's the limit. You can use them to develop, you can use them to settle, you can use them as whatever you want. If for some reason you assign them to a phase and that phase doesn't happen, you actually get to hold on to them. They only get expended and put back into the supply if you actually complete a task using them. So they're pretty much, except for a couple of exceptions like dictating, they're just like all the other dice. They're just wild dice that can be used to do anything. But again, if you hold on to them and not use them until the end of the game, each one is going to be worth a victory point. That might be better for you. But in any case, how you're going to claim these is by up in the top corner. As I mentioned, there is a particular phase that each of these objectives is associated with. When that phase kicks off and is completed, everyone checks to see if they met the condition of the objective, and if one or more players did so, they can claim the amount of talent counters it has up in the other corner of the tile, and then the tile is going to be flipped over, signifying that it cannot be claimed again. There are only 6 for the entire game. But multiple players can get the same amount of talents at the same time, but then it's just gone forever. So, for instance, we'll take a look at a few of these here. You have genetic manipulation, which says during the settlement phase, if you have 5 or more genes, green dice and or world. So you don't have to have that exact specification. That's just a picture to describe what it is, but it can be any combination of dice and or worlds of the green persuasion. Then you have system diversity. Settle 4 or more different colors of worlds, not counting gray worlds. And I think they specifically left that 4 or more a little more ambiguous because there may be different colored worlds coming in future expansions. Budget surplus. This is at the start of the managing empire phase. If you have 10 or more dollars and 8 or more dice, you will be able to claim that. Shipping network. This is also during settling. If you have 3 or more consumption purple dice. Then we have a satisfied populace. If you have 5 or more victory points, not counting the talent counters because they're not victory points quite yet. Expansion leader. If you have 4 or more developments that have develop or settlement powers, that happens during the develop phase. And the last one I'll show you is consumption network. This happens during the shipping phase or after the shipping phase. If you consume 4 or more goods in a single phase, without trading any goods, you're going to be able to get 5 talent counters, which is quite a lot, but that is really tough to do. All right, finally, let's get to the new tiles that are in the game. So let's cover these first. You have new tiles that are just going to be thrown into the bag. There's actually only, 5 of these? Yeah, there's only 5 of them, which I was kind of surprised by, actually. And they're not cut very well, either. Notice the text on the top. But anyways, I'm really nitpicking here. You have cards like Rebel Stronghold. The number of settlers required to settle this world cannot be affected by powers. Gain 2 military red dice into your citizenry when you place it. On the opposite side, on the development side, Contact Specialist. Just before completing a world, you may remove a military die to reduce the settlers required by 3, but not fewer than 1. Trap Freehold, which is, gain an Entrepreneur orange die into your cup when you place this world. Or you have Psy-Crystal Forecasters. After all players reveal their workers, you may move your die on the phase selection strip to any phase. This is the last one I'll show you of these. I'm not going to show you everyone, but this one's kind of funny. You have the Alien Booby Trap, which it only costs you 1 to settle. And when you settle it, you remove the settler that completed this world. So I think the only reason you'd really do this is to flesh out your empire and possibly end the game. Or if you really just want to get rid of a die, or if you have some sort of other world that gives you bonuses for settling as much as possible, so on and so forth. And okay, this will be the last one I take a look at. Terraforming Unlimited. You get +3 victory points per world of cost 4 or more in your tableau, and you may reassign up to 3 dice to become settlers. So okay, those are just development and settlement tiles that just get thrown into the bag as normal. No big deal there. You have a bunch of new home worlds to start off with. Alien Toy Shop. Remove 1 of your dice and gain an Entrepreneur die and an Alien Technology die into your citizenry. Star Nomads. Gain an Entrepreneur orange die and a Novelty Cyan die into your citizenry. Galactic Developers. Gain 2 rare elements brown dice. Alien First Contact Team. You gain an Alien Technology die into your cup at the start. Galactic Scavengers. Gain 2 additional home dice into your cup at the start of the game. And Rebel Convict Miners, which is begin the game with $2 instead of $1 and gain a military red die into your cup. And then finally, there are a surprising amount of faction tiles, the double tiles that you start off with. So again, I'm not going to go over every single one, but I'll show you some of them. You have Uplift Mercenaries and Rebel Uplift World. The settlement ability for +$2 for each pair of 1 military red die and 1 green die that completed a world this phase. Remove 1 of your dice and gain a military die and a green die into your cup at the start of the game. Alien Artifact Hunters and Alien Refinery. The hunters say that you get every time you ship, you get $2 for each good alien good, the yellow dice that you consume this phase. And the Alien Refinery says that you may not trade goods from this world, but you gain an Alien Technology yellow die on this world at the start of the game as a good. The Galactic Survey, which is during the Explore phase, you get $1 for each scout task that you do. And Deep Space Hub, you gain an additional white die into your citizenry at the start of the game. And the last one I'll show you, the Alien... Oh no, the Alien Orb, that bad Race for the Galaxy expansion. Try not to think about that. Alien Tech Institute, produce $2 each time you produce a good on an alien technology world. And the Alien Orb, gain an additional white die into your cup at the start of the game. And so on and so forth. None of the tiles in the game really break the rules in dramatic ways, but again, they give you new ways to get the new orange dice, and they just add more variety and more stuff into the mix. But otherwise, they integrate pretty seamlessly. The only thing that's kind of jarring is just using the new types of dice, and of course the objectives, which, if I didn't stress this enough or at all, are completely optional. You do not have to use the objectives at all. They are not integral to any of the other new things that are in the game. But whatever the case, and however you want to play the expansion, that is the Ambition expansion for Roll for the Galaxy. Let's get to my final thoughts. Can I take one more moment, though, and actually point out the box cover for the game? Find a high-res image on Board Game Geek. And I say that only because it is destined to meet the same fate as almost every single expansion box for any game that I have, which is in the garbage, but I think it's an excellent, excellent cover. So I don't know. I just thought I'd point that out. I'm thinking of doing a top 10 covers list at some point. In any case, this is a great expansion. Great expansion to a great game. Again, as I mentioned in my intro, this isn't going to change anyone's mind because it's not different enough. If you don't like Roll for the Galaxy, what's wrong with you? But aside from that, I don't think that this is going to change your mind at all. Unless perhaps you didn't like Roll because there wasn't enough variety of things for you. But still, I think this is primarily a gift to the fans of the game. Like, here's more stuff. If you're someone who played Roll for the Galaxy excessively in the past 6 or 7 months that it's been out, this is for you. This is to give you more, breathe new life into the game, to give you more variety of tiles. Although, and maybe, I don't know if this is necessarily a complaint, but I was surprised that there were not more development/settlement tiles, the bag tiles I call them, for lack of a better word that I can't grasp right now. There's only like 5 of them, which is kind of weird, but there's a ton of faction tiles. But I will say that the faction tiles and the homeworld tiles have such a big impact on not just the setup, but your whole tone and tenor for the rest of the game that I do like that there are so many of them. I'm just surprised that there's not more of the common tiles as well. But of course, the main centerpiece of this is the orange dice and the black dice, the leader dice, and those are great. And again, they're super simple to get into the game. The only thing that's you have trouble explaining is, okay, the leader die can or any of the modular dice that have the 2 different faces on them can switch between. It is a hard concept to wrap your head around if you're really used to playing Roll, but it's not a big deal. And the orange dice are even easier, I think, because it doesn't require any extra setup. They're just there. There's another type of dice you can take. The only thing is they can't be used in conjunction with any world to get extra bonuses because there is no orange world. But again, that's the trade-off, and I like the versatility of those dice. Whereas the yellow alien die was like the best die to get, arguably, in the primary base set. Now it's like, wow, I really want those orange dice, and I really don't want, everyone only gets the one black leader die for the entire game, but it's like, I don't really want to develop with that, really, and have it locked down for potentially a long time, or settle with it and have it locked down for more than a turn, because it's like, I want that back in circulation. It's good to have a wild colored die that can also do multiple things, and these dice also have the money symbol, which means like, hey, if I use this quickly, I'll get it back even faster. And that's a really interesting aspect to the game, and maybe some people won't like the added things that you have to keep track of. I thought it was not that big a deal, and I thought it integrated very, very well. The one thing that is a bit awkward to integrate into the game, and that's why it's optional, are the objectives, which I find it interesting. I like achievements and objectives in games, especially when it's not just an optional thing, it's like integrated into the game. I will say that the first time I played with the expansion, I played with some new people, and they were like, whoa, it's already too much as it is, trying to grasp this game, which, for your first time playing Roll, I can totally understand that. And they were like, okay, let's not bother with the objectives, which I understand, because that is a whole other thing to worry about, even though it may seem simple if you're already familiar with Roll, as I explained it to you. But I think that if I'm playing with experienced players in the future, I'll probably play with them. But if people say, I don't want to play with them, I would not be bothered by it. In other words, it's the very definition of an optional variant. Just like the series I have. No, not like that. But I just think that it's okay. I could take it or leave it. But the other stuff that comes in the set, new factions, new homeworlds, a lot of really interesting ones, the new dice that you get, all of these things, great. More to love about Roll for the Galaxy. There is something to be said for expansions that just add more of the same, if the same is really good. So I really enjoy Roll for the Galaxy. I'm surprised by how much both myself and the rest of my group have enjoyed that game over the past however many months to a year that it's been out, and I hope they keep putting out more expansions like this that add more variety, change a few things up in some subtle ways, and just keep improving the game steadily over time. That is Roll for the Galaxy Ambition, the first expansion for Roll for the Galaxy from Rio Grande Games. Highly recommend both it and the core game. Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.